They were involved with another person. Not because you were not good enough, not because you were simple to replace, but because something inside them was not prepared to face what was genuine. And now they carry a message they can no longer ignore or keep hidden inside. What they want to say is not easy, and it is not comfortable, because while they were physically present somewhere else, emotionally, a part of them never fully left you. And that truth has now become impossible for them to deny any longer. Have you ever felt like a connection never truly ended? Even when everything on the surface said it did, something stayed unfinished and quietly present in the background of your mind all along. That is where they have been living, not in the past exactly, but in a space where truth was delayed and not erased completely. Because real connection does not disappear. It waits patiently, and it remains, and eventually it asks to be seen clearly, without any doubt. They chose what felt safe instead of what felt true for them at that time. They moved toward what was familiar rather than what was quietly calling from deep inside them, with real strength, and they held on to what was easy to avoid instead of what could have actually changed them in a real and lasting way. In doing this, they convinced themselves that comfort was the same as peace, even though something within them kept questioning that choice. They stayed where things felt predictable, where emotions did not demand too much, and where they could remain in control without much effort. But deep down, there was always a quiet awareness that something more meaningful had been left behind. Something that required more courage than they were ready to give at that time in their life. And once that understanding began to settle within them, it did not fade away softly or disappear over time at all. It stayed with them in the moments they could not run from or distract themselves from easily. It showed up in quiet evenings, in the pauses between conversations, and in the space where their thoughts became louder than anything else around them. The feeling did not ask for attention, but it refused to be ignored by them. It remained present in a steady and quiet way, reminding them that something inside had been left unresolved for too long. And no matter how much they tried to move forward, this awareness stayed behind their actions, quietly shaping how they felt about everything in their days. In the silence between conversations, and in the repetition of days that slowly started to blend into one another, they began to notice how little life was truly asking from them at that point. Everything felt manageable, but also limited, as if growth had been replaced with routine over time. They started to see how much of their real self they had been holding back just to keep things simple and easy to handle without challenges. They avoided deeper questions, avoided stronger emotions, and avoided situations that might challenge who they were deep inside. Over time, this created a sense of distance within themselves, a feeling that they were present in their own life, but not fully engaged with it. And that quiet distance slowly became impossible to ignore any longer. What they had with the other person may have appeared stable on the surface, but it did not carry the same depth, meaning, or emotional weight as before. What they shared with you had something different, something that reached deeper and stayed longer in their heart. And things that are truly meaningful do not disappear just because someone walks away from them for a while. They remain present in the background of the mind, waiting quietly to be acknowledged without pressure. They do not demand attention, but they do not fade either over the passing days. Over time, these feelings begin to rise again, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle and persistent reminders that something important had once existed between you. At some point, they stopped pretending to themselves, not in one sudden realization, and not through a dramatic moment of clarity, but slowly and honestly in a way that felt both uncomfortable and real at the same time. They admitted that they were never fully alive in the place they chose to stay in during that period. Something important had always been missing, even if they tried not to see it clearly before. They recognized that no matter how much they tried to convince themselves they had moved forward, a part of them was still emotionally unfinished with you. This awareness did not come with ease at all. It came with a quiet honesty that forced them to look at their own decisions without excuses or hiding. They came to understand that they never truly gave that connection a fair chance in the past. Not because it lacked meaning or value, but because it required courage from them. It required a level of openness they were not prepared for at the time in their journey. The kind of courage that asks a person to show up without protection, to face the possibility of rejection, to allow themselves to feel deeply without knowing the outcome ahead. It meant risking emotional pain, risking change, and risking becoming someone different because of what they felt inside. Instead of stepping into that space, they stepped away from it, choosing safety over growth at that moment. Even though a part of them knew what they were leaving behind, now that awareness carries a message they could not express before. It is not perfect, it is not carefully shaped, and it is not asking for sympathy from anyone. It simply exists as a quiet and steady truth within them that they cannot ignore. They understand now, and they see what you represented in their life with new eyes. They recognize that what they were avoiding was never truly you, but the parts of themselves they were not ready to face honestly. And that realization shifts something deep inside them in a lasting manner. It changes how they see their past, their choices, and their understanding of what truly mattered most. It is not a loud change, but it is a permanent one that stays with them. Because once a person clearly sees their own avoidance, they cannot unsee it no matter what. They cannot return to pretending that nothing happened or that it did not matter at all. Whether they choose to reach out or remain silent, something inside them has already changed in a lasting way. The illusion they were living in has broken apart completely, and that collapse brings both discomfort and clarity to their mind. It forces them to sit with the truth of what they avoided and to accept the emotional weight that comes with that awareness every day. There is no easy way to escape it once it becomes clear in their thoughts. What you need to hold on to is this truth above everything. None of this was ever a reflection of your worth or your value as a person. It was always a reflection of their emotional readiness and their ability to face what they felt at that time. You were not replaced by someone better in any way. You simply crossed paths with someone who did not yet have the capacity to meet you where you were standing. And now they are standing in the result of their own choices, carrying the weight of everything they avoided, delayed, and left unresolved. Whether they speak about it or not, that is the real impact for them in their life. Not a dramatic return, not an immediate confession, but the truth slowly settling into their awareness over time. You were real, and real connections leave a mark that cannot be erased by convenience, distraction, or avoidance of any kind. They want you to understand that their choices were never about your value, but about their own fear and their level of emotional readiness back then. The hesitation, the distance, and the inconsistency all came from fear, not from a lack of understanding of what you meant to them. And now that fear has been faced, it has left them more aware, more honest, and more conscious of the consequences of how they handled something that truly mattered deeply. They are carrying a clarity that feels heavy, undeniable, and impossible to ease with excuses or simple explanations any longer. In that clarity, They can now clearly see what they ignored, what they delayed, and what can no longer be reversed or changed easily. They see the effect their silence, inconsistency, and avoidance had on someone who truly deserved full presence, honesty, and real effort from them. This awareness does not come with comfort at all. It comes with a steady understanding that stays with them without rushing. It does not rush or fade away quickly in their days. Instead, it sits quietly within them, reminding them of every moment they chose distance over, truth and hesitation over honesty in the past. This is not a request or a plea for anything to return to how it was. It is not asking for reconciliation or another chance at this time. It is simply an admission, a quiet form of understanding that only comes after reflection and personal growth on their side. They recognize the courage you showed just by being emotionally open, by asking for honesty, and by refusing to accept half effort or unclear attention from them. And in that recognition comes both respect and regret at the same time within them. Respect for your honesty and strength, and regret for not being brave enough to meet you at that same level when it truly mattered most. That regret is not loud or dramatic in any visible way at all. It is quiet, internal, and always present beneath the surface of their thoughts. It appears in late-night thoughts, in quiet moments when they cannot distract themselves, and in memories they try but cannot fully push away. It continues to remind them of the chances they let pass, the honesty they avoided, and the connection they did not protect when they had the chance before. This feeling does not shout for attention, but it never completely disappears from their mind. It stays steady and constant, shaping how they now understand their past and the decisions they made during that time in life. What they want you to understand most clearly is that this is not about missing comfort or simple familiarity alone. It goes much deeper than that in their heart. It is about finally understanding what a real connection feels like and realizing that something genuine cannot simply be replaced or ignored easily. In every decision they made, there was still a part of them that remained aware of you all along, aware of the truth they were not expressing out loud at the time. That awareness never left completely. It only grew stronger over time, slowly turning into a clarity they can no longer deny or avoid in their daily life. They are not asking for forgiveness, and they are not trying to force any decision from you at all. They are simply offering the truth of their realization, something they were not able to express before this point. This is their truth, presented in a quiet and honest way, without performance or exaggeration of any sort. It comes from someone who finally sees what was in front of them all along, and now carries that understanding with full responsibility. There is no attempt to rewrite the past or make it seem different from what it was. There is only an effort to acknowledge what was real and what it truly meant to them. The message is not about changing what has already happened in the past. It is about fully accepting it without running away. They are no longer running away from the emotions they once avoided for so long. They are no longer dividing their attention or hiding behind silence and distraction like before. They have faced their hesitation, their emotional distance, and their fear of being vulnerable with themselves. And through that process, they have come to realize something important and clear in their mind. The person they hesitated to fully show up for was always you, without question. And that truth now carries a strong emotional weight that cannot be ignored any longer by them. That realization has reshaped how they understand connection, honesty, and emotional presence in their life. They are different now in awareness. Even if the past cannot be changed at all, even if they never act on what they feel, the understanding they carry will not disappear from them. It remains because they now see you clearly, not as an option, not as something replaceable, but as a meaningful connection they were not ready for at the time. That truth stays with them, and it shapes their thoughts and follows them into future time. Experiences where real emotional depth appears again in life. What comes next is no longer guided by confusion or uncertainty for them. It becomes about conscious choice, your clarity, and your ability to stay grounded in your own truth and self-respect moving forward. Take a moment and sit with this fully. Allow yourself to feel the weight of what has passed and what may still be possible ahead in your faith journey. Trust your instincts, your inner voice, and the strength you have developed over time through your own experiences. You already know what feels right for you deep inside. You already understand what you deserve. And now, with full awareness of both their growth and your own, the next step can be taken with clarity, calm, confidence, and steady self-respect. On the surface, someone may appear fully committed elsewhere or focused in another direction, in life completely. But emotionally and psychologically, a part of them can still remain connected to something they never fully understood or resolved before. This is not about betrayal in a simple way, but about the deeper and more complex nature of human attachment, fear, and personal growth that develops slowly over time. What makes this situation powerful is the role that fear plays in shaping decisions that people often do not fully understand while making them at the moment. Fear quietly influences choices more than most people are aware of in their lives. Fear of closeness, fear of being vulnerable, fear of losing control, and even fear of facing one's own emotional truth can lead someone to divide their attention or avoid what they truly feel inside. In those moments, they may move toward other connections, not because of real love, but because of comfort, distraction, or the need to avoid deeper feelings completely. At the same time, the person they were deeply connected to remains present in their thoughts. Even if they do not speak about it openly with others, that presence continues through memories, quiet comparisons, and unspoken thoughts that stay with them. It shapes their emotional world in ways that are not always visible from the outside, but are strongly felt within their heart. Regret becomes a meaningful part of this process when someone avoids emotional truth or delays a real connection. They eventually begin to feel the result of that avoidance. This realization often arrives quietly, during reflection in moments of stillness, or when there are no distractions left to escape from their own thoughts. It is not about simply missing someone on a surface level alone. It is about clearly seeing the choices that were made, the fear that guided those choices, and the missed chance to fully value a real emotional connection that existed. That understanding does not come quickly or easily for them. It builds over time, becoming stronger with each moment of honesty they allow. And once it is fully seen, it stays, shaping how they move forward and how they understand what truly matters in their life going ahead. This kind of regret is powerful because it brings a person face to face with accountability, humility, and real inner growth that lasts. It does not allow easy escape or quick distraction from the truth. Instead, it asks them to look directly at their own choices and the impact those choices created on others. At the same time, growth is never one-sided or limited to one person alone. In this journey, while one individual is learning to face fear accept responsibility, and understand emotional truth more clearly, the other person is also changing in their own way with strength. They are learning to set stronger boundaries, to protect their peace, and to value their self-respect more deeply than before, even when it requires distance for a time. This creates a situation where both individuals continue to evolve, often at different speeds, but still moving in similar directions internally over the months. When clarity finally arrives for one person, the other may already have developed a deeper sense of strength, awareness, and emotional understanding in their path. This shift ensures that any future interaction, if it ever takes place, is no longer based on confusion, emotional need, or uncertainty at all. Instead, it becomes rooted in conscious choice, self-awareness, and emotional maturity that feels right. The dynamic changes because both individuals are no longer standing in the same place they once were, even if the memory of that connection still exists within them. Even when someone appears to move forward on the surface, parts of their emotional world can remain connected to what was never fully understood or resolved completely. That original connection continues to influence how they see happiness, meaning, and emotional fulfillment in their life every day. This is why their external behavior can sometimes feel disconnected from their internal reality in quiet ways. There is often a quiet contrast between what they show to others and what they actually feel inside their heart. This contrast is not always intentional, but it becomes more noticeable over time as awareness begins to grow and questions begin to surface within them naturally. At the same time, the person who once asked for honesty and emotional presence is also growing and changing with time. They are not standing still or waiting in the same place any longer. They are becoming more grounded, more self-aware, and more certain of their own value as a person. They are learning to trust themselves, to listen to their instincts, and to move forward with greater clarity every step. This growth ensures that if any reconnection ever happens, it will not come from emotional dependence or confusion, but from a place of strength, balance, and clear understanding of what truly matters most. This shared growth becomes important because it protects both individuals from repeating the same patterns that once created distance between them. It allows any future interaction to be based on awareness instead of confusion, and on maturity instead of emotional instability. Another important truth that becomes clear through this process is that emotional presence goes beyond physical closeness alone. Even when someone is physically with another person, emotionally a part of them can remain connected to an unresolved bond from before. This presence is quiet but steady, appearing in thoughts, memories, and comparisons that happen without conscious effort on their part. In the end, everything comes back to awareness, growth, and truth that lasts. What was once hidden has now become visible clearly. What was once avoided has now been understood fully by them. They have faced their fear, their hesitation, and the choices they made along the way. And that has changed how they see everything in their life. Now at the same time, you have grown into someone who no longer depends on confusion or mixed up signals to feel certain about your worth as a person. You have learned to protect your peace, to trust your instincts, and to stand firmly in your flow. Self-respect without needing validation from anyone else around you. What this creates is not a story about return or loss, but a clear understanding of what was real and what it required from both sides. You represented something genuine, something meaningful, and something that asked for courage to hold. That truth has now been recognized, even if it came later than expected by them. But your journey does not pause for someone else's realization at any time. You continue forward with clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of what you deserve and what you will no longer accept in your life. So what remains is simple and clear for you. Stay grounded in your truth and trust the growth you have gone through with patience. Let your decisions come from clarity, not from old emotions or uncertainty that may linger. What is meant to align with you will meet you with the same honesty, presence, and effort that you have always carried inside. And anything that cannot meet you there will naturally fall away without force.